wasn't real. They were just messing with my head.
Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. finally showed us what a magical place Tahiti was. That's right, we found out how Agent Coulson survived after the Avengers, and we found out what happened to Mike Peterson after the last episode. Turns out the comic book rule holds true, you never die completely. Or maybe it's that no one can't be brought back from the dead, at least if you're a super soldier or Nick Fury's BFF. So lots to talk about this time. We even got some clues as to the identity of the clairvoyant. So I'm going to do my top 5 moments, then I'll do my review, and then I'll talk about who I think the clairvoyant is. Number 5, Skye does her best Melinda May impression. In my head, all I could hear was her bowing between takes on set and saying, "This one is for the Oscar." And even though the whole thing was a little bit on the nose, I did laugh the minute the camera just started panning slowly up and she said her name was Melinda May and you get the sunglasses shot. Number 4, I'll Rochambeau you for it. The other option would have been rock, paper, scissors, so I wonder if they just said Rochambeau because they're British. The last time I heard a character use that phrase on TV, it was Eric Cartman in a really old episode of South Park. Considering that Ward was in super hardcore interrogation mode whenever they cut back to Fitz for that line, it was pretty funny. I did laugh pretty hard. Number 3, Coulson can't stop saying it's a magical place. The most interesting part of this is that clearly there's some mental trigger in his head for saying that whenever he says the word Tahiti. We don't necessarily need to know why he can't stop saying that phrase, it's just meant to be an indicator that whatever's inside his head is just too dangerous for even him to know, so there's a big mental block stopping him from knowing. Number 2, Mike Peterson is co-opted by the clairvoyant. So Mike is none the worse for wear, minus a leg in a holding cell, but now he's got this same control tech that Coulson's old field agent had, so he's basically going to be forced to work for the villains now. I can't wait to see the showdown between him and Melinda May. It'll be the super soldier versus the cavalry. I feel like you could sell ringside seats to that, the MMA fight of the decade. And my number 1 moment, the magical place. If you didn't feel like they explained it well enough, here's what happened to Coulson. He was dead for a few days after the events of the Avengers, but because you can keep the brain alive by stimulating it electrically and maintaining blood flow, Nick Fury basically did a bunch of crazy surgeries to repair the rest of his body. The robot was there to keep his brain alive while they were performing all those surgeries. The reason they implanted the Tahiti memory was because all of those surgeries were so awful. That's why Coulson was screaming at them to let him die. So let me know what your favorite moment was, and let me know if you were satisfied with the explanation of how Coulson survived. Overall, I felt the episode was a strong comeback for the second half of the season. Obviously, they kind of teed up basically the storyline. The second half of the season is going to be hunting down the clairvoyant now that it's on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s shit list. They kept talking about the fridge, so obviously it's some sort of big prison, but I'm kind of wondering now if there's a deep freeze too. I also kind of thought that Coulson was going to give Skye the info on her parents whenever he went to take her bracelet off. I think that'll come back in the next episode. Did anyone else think of Sharknado whenever they started talking about superstorms with that CG hurricane in the background? Marvel Sharknado. That sounds like it belongs on a Deadpool show. Deadpool versus Sharknado. But let's talk about the clairvoyant now. So based on a lot of the things that the characters said about it and the way they described it, it sounds a lot like it's an AI. Think about it this way, Marvel does a really good job of teeing up ideas, years in advance for things that are going to happen in the movies. So the next big villain in Avengers 2 is going to be Ultron, an evil AI. So why wouldn't they tee it up in a TV show 2 years in advance? And think about it, Raina was talking about how the clairvoyant was giving them formulas. Coulson said that it knew lots of personal information, but an AI could totally grab that from your cell phone, from your home hard drive, from the things that you said in your security cameras. And what about Mike Peterson? Whenever the instructions started reading across his eyeballs, I got this really strong AI vibe. And think about Skye too. Obviously, what's her role on the team? She's like the hacker. What would be a better showdown in the finale than watching her go up against an evil AI? I'm just saying it, Ultron's coming in a couple years, so they're obviously going to have to tee up the idea somehow, and why wouldn't they do that in a big TV show? Let me know what you think though. Is the clairvoyant an AI, or is it a real person? In other news, I'm working on a predictions video for the second half of Arrow Season 2. Be sure to subscribe to get it. I'll add an annotation right here whenever I post that video, and you can click here to get my predictions for The Walking Dead this season. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. High fives.